So apparently it's finally done. Did you know that Algorand recently, around a week ago, they announced how Algorand is now connected to the wider EVM. EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine. But again, they say it's now connected to the wider EVM network with over 30 million active users. Now, before I get into this, I first want to explain how nothing I say is financial advice. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but I just feel like this milestone right here, this achievement or whatever I would even like to call it, I think it's pretty monumental, actually, and I think it's very impressive at the end of the day. We have to consider this. Okay, again, EVM, right? Ethereum Virtual Machine. We do know one thing, right? Ethereum is just a way more popular layer one blockchain when compared to Algorand. Way more fans, way more, attention, way more adoption. But at the same time, if they found a way, right, to connect the wider EVM network with over 30 million users with Algorand, I think that's actually a big victory. Now, people like to say, but why though? Isn't that a sign of weakness? No, I don't think so, because let's just take this into consideration. If you can't really beat them, might as well join them. I suppose that's kind of the mindset that I have when it comes to Algorand in this case. It's kind of like that mindset where someone says, if you can't beat them, join them. That type of, I guess, analogy that I would have. The reason why I think so is because if Algorand just didn't care about any other layer one blockchain, if it just kind of wanted to act independently like that, I think it would greatly limit its kind of future growth in terms of its fundamentals. So I think this is actually a genius thing to do. If I just even want to put an analogy when it comes to this, let me just use an example from boxing, right? In case someone does watch boxing, let me just give this analogy. But I still think it makes sense either way though. But besides that, let's take a look at Anthony Joshua. Very talented, right? But what happened to him? He lost twice to Alexander Usyk. Now, at that point, a lot of other boxers, maybe at that time, they would feel like, they don't want to train with anything related to do with someone who defeated them, right? But what happened? Anthony Joshua, before his match against Jake Paul, which I didn't really find to be anything too entertaining for me, but I'm just saying, besides that, before Anthony Joshua again boxed Jake Paul, he did train with Alexander Usyk's team, basically. That I think showcases, if you can't really beat him, might as well join him. That kind of mindset, right? I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but that's just what I thought maybe Anthony Joshua might have, I guess, thought in his mind in regard to joining Alexander Usyk's team to train before he had a match with Jake Paul. However, that situation just kind of reminded me of how Algorand is now connected to the wider EVM network with over 30 million users. That wouldn't necessarily happen if Algorand had more of a mindset where they don't care about anything else or something like that. That would, I think, actually be a major hindrance. So good thing they think about it in a different way, where they think about, you know what, Ethereum is way more popular. Why would this be a bad thing, right? I like that mindset right there. And I think Algorand, as of late, became a little bit more unified, right? Take a look at Algorand Technologies and the Algorand Foundation, basically, not too long ago. They unified, right? Became one thing, basically. Not to mention, they moved recently from Singapore to the US, in which case, in particular, they actually moved back to Delaware. So, yeah, I just think overall, when it comes to Algorand, I just like the cohesive vibes that it's been having as of late. Not to mention as well, people like to say, but this is not that impressive as a layer one blockchain. Well, why though? I mean, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but just kind of my perspective is that people usually care about three different traits when it comes to a layer one blockchain. The first being usually they care about the speed. The second, usually they care about the scalability. And third of all, usually they really care about the gas fees, in which case I don't see any issues when it comes to Algorand in any of those aspects. It's fast, it's scalable, arguably, and the gas fees are not completely ridiculous. That's just kind of my mindset. Not to mention, Algorand has an aspect of ISO 20022, which is very impressive, actually, and let me explain why that is. Now, a lot of people often like to say ISO 20022, but they don't really mention why it actually matters. So, in case someone hasn't heard about it, let me just kind of give my simple explanation to the best of my capabilities. Now, ISO 20022, that's currently being used by many financial institutions from all around the world, basically, for something called inter-organizational data exchange, which may sound very complicated, but if we just take a look at that right there, basically it's already being used by a lot of financial institutions around this world, right? So of course, if a project has an aspect of that, it's considered oftentimes like very impressive. But we don't really automatically think about that when it comes to Algorand, because the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to Algorand isn't ISO 20022, or should I say having an aspect of that when it comes to many people out there. When a lot of my friends out there take a look at Algorand, they're just like, oh, it's another layer one blockchain. That's it. There's really no like sort of thought about ISO 20022. But now another narrative that's kind of beginning to form, or formulate, I should say, when it comes to Algorand is its noted security, which not a lot of people thought about this, but we've seen Google in its quantum paper mention Algorand a lot. Actually, it was allegedly the third most mentioned blockchain behind Bitcoin and Ethereum. Very impressive. We've seen Coinbase talk about its security. We've seen Charles Hoskinson, who's the founder of Cardano and the co-founder of Ethereum, talk about Algorand security. So we already see a couple narratives when it comes to Algorand, right? ISO 20022, aspects that are often perceived to be good as a layer one blockchain, and also third of all, security, and fourth of all, now we also take a look at reliability, right? Because apparently there's been zero failed, I guess, on-chain transactions when it comes to Algorand. So when I take a look at that right there, I mean, those narratives right there are oftentimes something that people might care about if the market sentiment were to change. But the keyword is might, right? It doesn't mean it will. It doesn't mean people will automatically care. No. But it's just like they might care about that hypothetically in some cases, because I've seen that many times in the past. Take a look at Avalanche. Take a look at Algorand. By extension, right? Even back in 2021. What caused it to become popular? You know, the perceived good fundamentals, according to some people. But actually, as of right now, I think that the fundamentals when it comes to Algorand is better than before. I really do believe that. And take a look at, for instance, Algorand not too long ago had a partnership with Zebic. Zebic, keep in mind, is one of the most popular projects out there that's focused on global trade and finance within this space. Zebic themselves recently had a partnership with Ripple and Stellar. And not to mention, Zebic has an aspect of Solana. Zebic, furthermore, has backers like Solana Ventures and as well as Circle. So when we take a look at that right there, that seems very impressive. Not to mention, Zebic also has backers like Coinbase Ventures, OKX Ventures, and also some others, but I'm just highlighting a couple, right? Why does no one really talk about that partnership, actually, when it comes to Algorand? You know, I just find that very surprising, actually, considering how, yes, Zebic is currently smaller than Algorand as a project, but that seems like a very impressive partnership too. I didn't see, again, very many people talk about that. Well, it's probably because some people out there don't really know what Zebic is, but I'm just saying still, this is one of the major reasons why I never just solely focus on the price charts and draw some random triangles, because I feel like it does nothing for me. If I only take a look at the price charts, I'm not going to know about the partnerships, I'm not going to know about the fundamentals, and I'm not going to know what's going on in terms of the updates. What am I just going to be doing at that point? Just taking a look at the charts? What does that do for me? Okay, if I draw a random triangle, what do you think is going to happen? Like the market's automatically going to care about what I have to do? No, it does not care. It doesn't care what I have to do. I can draw SpongeBob, I can draw Spider-Man, I can draw, random triangles on the price chart. The market does not care, and it's not going to move according to what I draw. There's just zero way it's going to do that. So I'd rather just focus on the fundamentals and wait, that's it. So yeah, when it comes to Algorand as of right now, or should I say its native token called ALGO, still around $1 billion in terms of market cap. I mean, the recovery in the past 30 days has been around 15%, but really nothing that significant, but I'm not necessarily concerned either. If I take a look at it, ALGO's market cap not too long ago, even just back in July of 2025, was almost 3 billion. So we're almost 3 times lower than that, which Bitcoin going back to its all-time high is not, around 3 times, right? Furthermore, ALGO, going back to where it once was in January of 2025, market cap was almost 4 billion. We're almost 4 times lower than that. Either ALGO goes back to that, or let's say around a 3 billion market cap, I have zero complaints. It may sound kind of boring. Some people like to say, like, who cares about that type of movement? But again, from $1 billion to either around 3 billion or around 4 billion, I should say, Like that type of movement, I wouldn't consider it like to be boring for me just because I don't know if Bitcoin could do that. I don't know, right? I mean, Bitcoin is not around 4 times or around 3 times lower than a certain point in which it was in 2025. It just isn't. It's not even 2 times lower than its all-time high. But that's just kind of my mindset. So the movement from like 1 to 3 or 4, like I don't find it to be a bad thing. I don't know when it comes to the charts. But that's just my personal perspective. I'll be sure to keep everyone updated though if there is more things that are going on when it comes to Algorand basically. So yeah, hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. I want to say thank you for watching. I hope you all have a very nice day. It's Mali the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.